we are now talking about Binance and this crypto contagion that has really taken over the industry. So withdrawals on the exchange surged. The exchange endured $902 million of net outflows in the past 24 hours. This is according to data by Nansen. Traders are becoming concerned about the exchange's reserves. This is after a Reuters report yesterday that said U.S. prosecutors are mulling criminal charges for possible money laundering against Binance and its executives, including CEO CZ. Now, there was a pause on USDC trading. Binance recently tweeted, I think while we were on the show, that USDC withdrawals are now active again. Will, I'm going to pass this one off to you. What do you make of this?
People want to take their assets into their own hands, and I think that's a good lesson to learn after what's happened with FTX, right? Binance is the largest exchange in the world. They have about $63 billion worth of assets, and people want to take those assets and put them in their own pocketbook. Why? Because we shouldn't really trust many exchanges. CZ's even said this in some of his own tweets recently, saying it's a good stress test for the exchange. At this point, we don't really know about Binance's financials. They did release an audit, but that audit left more questions than answers about Binance's books. That being said, Binance has been able to get back all these withdrawals in a timely manner. So there hasn't been as much of concern as there has been with FTX or Alameda. If you go back to early November, FTX and Alameda actually spun out pretty quickly, right? Like it stopped processing withdrawals within about 3 or 4 days of people starting to pull funds out of that exchange. I think it's a good point to make here. This is not a run on the bank because Binance is not a bank. This is a run on an exchange, meaning people are pulling their funds off the exchange because a lot of times people just leave funds on exchange to trade or because they're lazy and they don't want to take it into self-custody. But it's better to take it into self-custody. The last point I want to bring up is this is actually the largest withdrawal of Bitcoin on Binance in 24 hours ever. About 40,000 Bitcoin have left the exchange, according to Glassnode data, which is a hefty amount of Bitcoin. Zach, I want to throw this one over to you.
Yeah, I just want to say, this isn't like ma and pa investor necessarily doing this. The one that stood out to me, as highlighted by Nansen's Andrew Thurman, former CoinDesk reporter, is that these are big firms doing this. This is Jump Capital, Jump Crypto, which has been burned in the past by having funds on exchanges and other projects. This is Wintermute, which is a big market maker in the space. So these are some pretty sophisticated folks who are moving large sums off of Binance, I guess, to be extra cautious. So that to me stood out yesterday from some of the data that was being highlighted by Nansen and others, that it's not, just the small investor that's, porting their funds to a ledger. These are some big boys who tend to move markets in ways that may be a bit more significant. So again, I think this is that shock test for Binance. And if they can withstand a shock test such as this and still remain liquid, that'll be a great sign for the health of that company and for the crypto economy as a whole. It's still TBD when you see big numbers surging off an exchange like this, whether or not they can continue operations as normal. And for the most part, aside from some hiccups on the stablecoin side, that seems to be playing out. But I'll kick it to Jen. I saw her hand up, and then we'll hear from Wendy.
Yeah, I think there's a lesson here for exchanges. So Binance recently released a report from an auditing firm that claimed that its Bitcoin reserves are over-collateralized, but that report was super scrutinized by the industry, by investors, by customers, and I think that there's a lesson here. If you are going to release information that has to do with your reserves right now, which you should be doing, that information is going to be scrutinized, and you need to be ready to answer the questions that the public are going to have. And so I think that exchanges can learn that from this. But Wendy, I'll pass it off to you.
One of the things that I wanted to chime in about is, I believe we actually talked about it on the show, September 5th, 2022, Binance, issuer of the third biggest stablecoin, to stop supporting larger rival USDC. And on top of it, I think that a lot of people are just kind of shaken with the entire markets, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that they're removing funds. But I will say, kind of to Zach's point, when you have large amounts being removed from crypto exchanges or being moved across the blockchain, those are going to be tracked. And I believe that there's an account well alerts folks on crypto Twitter that does post those. And back in like 2018, 2019, it would cause so much FUD. People would be like, oh my God, we're going to pump, we're going to dump, all of this stuff. And as a trader, those are things that we do kind of pay attention to in some instances. So I think that part of the reason why they were having trouble, what people were having trouble withdrawing funds, is because there's a lot of people that were removing them at the same time. But if Binance is actually solvent, which I do think they are, not financial advice, it shouldn't be an issue if people are removing their funds, because again, the way exchanges should be making money is not by loaning capital out to other people, but charging trading fees. Again, it could be wrong here, not financial advice. Zach?
It is a really cool thing about crypto is that you can see this happen in real time, and you can see people comment on it in real time, because these are known wallets and you can track inflows and outflows, right? So, Nansen is in the business of doing this. There's an update on Twitter now saying that in addition to these massive outflows, there's also some fresh capital being poured in, maybe seeing some opportunities that Jump has created for other market participants acting at a big scale to seize upon. So it is interesting kind of watch this drama unfold and try to get, between like in the tea leaves, or I guess like read between the lines of these, these ledger entries, what the hell is really going on. And you have all these interesting like data flows, right? Like all this money is flowing into Paxos, which administers the BUSD stablecoin. So interesting sort of ramifications across the space as evidenced on chain by some of this stuff, which I think is always cool to watch and is different from the existing financial system.